Yeah. Good.
Brilliant. Okay. Hi all. Welcome to our first information video session. We've had a few questions from people off of various social media platforms, and we've got Mick, who I think Mick, it's just showing you on the main video bit now. You know, can you see at the top? It's in green. I think, is it locked on you? Is it bouncing from one side?
It's showing green on. It was showing green on yours.
On mine. All right. Okay, that's fine. Because is it showing me now?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Forget that, everyone. Yeah. So my name's Dominic. I'm a physiotherapist by trade. Work part-time for the NHS, part-time in my private clinic. Do some personal training, some classes as well, those that have been seen before. I have a special interest in strength and conditioning and how that relates to rehabilitation and physiotherapy. We've got Mick Blythe and Alex Woods, who have got their own established career paths and interests. So, Mick, if you'd like to just introduce yourself.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mick. I'm 21 years into the industry. The grey side's a bit to prove that. Within that kind of time frame, I've done a lot of things. I started off many years ago as a personal trainer. That then led into a career teaching sports science in a variety of colleges. And then about 7-8 years ago, I went self-employed, and that has seen me do a variety of things, including running ice hockey academies, opening up my own personal training and strength and conditioning facility, and doing a lot of work for a local company that teaches other people how to be kind of personal trainers and instructors and stuff like that. I've contributed articles to organisations across the world. On a daily basis, I work with children to adults to people with obesity and very serious health problems, but also world level athletes as well. So I like to think in that 21 years I've kind of done a bit and seen a bit, and therefore able to discuss or give my input, on a wide range of things.
Brilliant, thanks, Mick. And we've got Alex with us as well. Alex Woods, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so as you said, my name's Alex. So I'm a personal trainer at the minute, personal trainer and online coach. Very much specialising at the minute in kind of bodybuilding style. So the majority of my clients are bodybuilders online, but also face-to-face to do work with a lot of guys just wanting to improve sort of general fitness, but also improve their physique as well. So sort of my background, I've got an undergraduate degree in sports science and management, postgraduate in applied sport and exercise science. I've also had some experience working at Leicester Tigers, Nottingham Rugby and Sheffield Eagles from an S&C point of view throughout all my studying period. Also, as you've probably seen on the sort of posters for the chat, I compete in men's physique bodybuilding. So I won the Junior Men's Physique British Championships last year. I've done a total of 10 shows since the age of 21. I'm 24 now, so I've done a lot of shows in that time, and sort of a lot of the stuff that I'll be talking about on this chat is all regarding sort of competitive bodybuilding. And so yeah, that's a bit about me.
Well, thanks guys. So we're going to start off, the whole post today is going to be mainly around nutrition. A little bit more about bodybuilding nutrition towards the end for the guys that are following Alex on social media. We're going to look a bit about motivation to start with. It's the beginning of the journey that you're going to take to any kind of nutritional change that you're going to have in your life, whether it's weight loss, weight gain, muscle building, or from a physiotherapy point of view, we look at weight and how it impacts joints, ligaments, tendons. So there's a lot of different avenues you can go down when it comes to motivation and how to help yourself and others, if you are working with clients and patients, to help them keep them motivated through a transitional period and motivated long term. I wanted to pass over to Mick at this point just because of his years of experience. I'm sure he's seen an abundance of client where motivation can be quite difficult. And key.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, I'm a very big fan, kind of my geeky side is very much in anthropology and evolution and stuff like that. You know, just one of those things that I've always been into. And, you know, not that I've got any formal qualifications in it, I've not, but, you know, when you start doing reading in it yourself, you know, what you find out very quickly is that all animals, you know, whether they are a dog, a cat, a bear, or a human, ultimately are not in all cases, but, you know, as a whole, are inherently quite lazy. You know, and the reason for that is that is an evolutionary protective design. You know, while ever someone can remain in a safe, comfortable, predictable environment, then that is better for kind of survival. And ultimately, exercise, it kind of moves people out of that, if that kind of makes sense. You know, ultimately, people might want the benefits of exercise, they want the aesthetic appeal that it gives and the endorphin release, etc. But, you know, when they've already had a long day at work and they are stressed and they're tired, and there's other things that are better and easier to do, it becomes a real battle for them to go and exercise. You know, so ultimately, you know, very, very early in my career, you know, one of the things that I realized that I had to do with clients is try to sway them more towards doing the exercise than away from doing it, you know. And 17, 18 years of age, you know, I was that coach that tried to train every client like a soldier or like an athlete or like how I trained at the time. And it didn't really go down very well. But, you know, the more they did it, the more they realized that, you know, actually before you kind of get into your training, you have to try and create some sort of relationship, you know, with your client. Not just because they then kind of like you, and then that's another reason to come and see you on a cold, dark Thursday night after work, but also so you can find out a little bit about them. You can find out things you have in common, drivers, you know, reasons behind it, things that they do like and don't like, and ultimately just get them into the habit of training first of all, you know, and you know, whether or not it's actually a few weeks until you start doing kind of things that are going to really benefit them. But if it is a few weeks later, you have still kind of got them into the habit of coming to train. And hopefully, if they've been coming to the gym, they've made friends at the gym, and then that's another reason to come, you know, just through exercising a little bit and eating a little bit better, they're losing weight. So that's a reason to continue. And just basically try to create a kind of snowball effect. And, you know, that's something that I'm very big on still, you know, 20 years later. It's something I try to encourage all my students that I teach to do. Listen, it's not a foolproof plan. It doesn't always work. You know, you try all these tricks and tactics, and lo and behold, a week later, they cancel the sessions, or, you know, you just don't create that relationship, or sometimes other things happen in the life that just takes precedent. But, you know, that has always been my thing with clients. Just become friends. You know, if friends is the right term, it's a weird relationship, isn't it? A coach-client relationship. You kind of like, you work for them, but they work for you and all these things. But become friendly with them, build confidence, get them coming back, make sessions a combination of challenging but enjoyable, you know, and hopefully then we can then get them into kind of lifelong habits.
Yeah, so you're looking at it more from the getting into the whole package to then understand the benefits of then the nutrition side of things as well. So, you know, buying into yourself as a person, buying into buying into the exercising kind of routine. I think people have already made a conscious act by even watching this video. If you are watching it from a client point of view or from general public, just thinking about how can this help me with my nutrition? You've already made that first step.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Mick's saying there, definitely, if you are training with people that you like, family, friends, and it works kind of oppositely as well. If you're around people that are that don't exercise so often, that don't eat well, it's harder to keep up with a good routine.
Yeah.
Keep on that good cycle rotation. I see it from a physio point of view, where I get clients that may have, say, knee, hip, or back pain that are overweight, struggle with nutrition and dieting and exercise. They go through that cycle of being too tired to do anything after work because they've got no energy left, whereas they need to break that first barrier to actually attend something.
Yeah. Start
the diet, start the gym work, start the exercise, whatever it may be, to then give them the energy to continue with it.
Absolutely, yeah. Get what I tell all my youth students is, just get them coming back. You can forget systems, exercises, loading schemes, coaching cues. You can forget all that. In my opinion anyway, the number one factor to progress to success is adherence. It's no good doing one good week. It's got to be multiple weeks, months, years, and if there's no adherence, there can be no progress.
So what would you say, Mick, to those that do have quite good adherence to exercise but struggle with the adherence with the nutrition?
Yeah, I mean, again, approaching this from a kind of evolutionary perspective, I think a lot of the reasons why people struggle with nutrition is because we are innately always going to be designed to seek out
easy
foods that yield a high amount of calories, that kind of tastes nice and takes next to no effort to obtain. And that's why takeaways are just the perfect thing,
You're saying we should plan our fitness and open a takeaway? Would that work?
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So I mean, it's a stepped approach. It's a stepped approach. I think certainly my clients, I think above anything else, I think they do struggle most with nutrition. I think from a motivation perspective, it's a bit easier to get yourself up to do 3 1-hour sessions a week in a nice, friendly, environment, as opposed to eating good, healthy, low-calorie foods 90% of the week and being hungry. Hungry is not a nice feeling. Listen, people have got lots of factors as well that affect, nutrition. And, I've got a wife and 2 kids now, and, a lot of what we eat is dictated by what kids want to eat or what my wife's eating and all these things. And, some clients, they've got 4 kids.
Yeah.
They've got all these things. So
time is a big factor when it comes to preparation.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then you've got other factors like mental health factors which play a part. You've got physical factors like diabetes. Other kind of issues. If you've had a stroke, getting through the day might take twice as much energy. You're constantly striving for that high sugar, high calorie food. But then we've got the opposite side of the spectrum, which is your athletes that are willing to give everything, try everything to make sure they get that extra 1%. And then, Alex, I'm sure you've got a lot of information on how the bodybuilder's diet must be the hardest diet to follow. Yet bodybuilders seem to manage it quite well. How would you explain?
Yeah, I think the bodybuilding diet there's a lot of the old school, if you like, bodybuilding diet is probably what's given the bodybuilding diet a bad name. Like your chicken and rice. Yeah, it's boring, it's plain, but you can actually incorporate some pretty decent meals, which I try to do with a lot of my athletes as well, which almost fit into what they can eat in a day. So it's just almost making things that, for me, my athletes need to adhere to. It's met by example, if you've got they're like burgers and chips. So we can make that meal healthy and still have it in the diet. So we can stick things like turkey burgers. We can do homemade 2% meat turkey burgers with bagel thins and then air fried white potato, which is burger and chips essentially, but it's a healthier version of it. So our bodybuilders, we do follow, although it is a strict diet, but in terms of
indulgent diet.
Yeah, we can still make it better. We can still make it enjoyable to eat. And as bodybuilders, although from the outside we look to be very, very strict in what we do, we are. But even stuff like that, we try and take easier routes, because although we want to make it as easy to adhere to as possible, which although we're high level athletes, we're still human beings. So if we can make a meal taste nice,
no more fish in a rice cake.
No, nothing like that. I mean, that's probably exactly. That's what gives the bad name. But I think it's even with, if you're dealing with high level competitors, as well as just your person who wants to improve their body composition, just your regular gym goer, I think as easier you can make that plan to follow the nutrition, the better. It's got to suit their lifestyle. It's got to suit the foods they like. It's not just giving them a plan that will work, but if they don't like it, then they're not going to follow it. No matter what level.
Yeah, good. So I think a huge part about nutrition, diet, whether you're trying to put on muscle mass or lose fat, is understanding your food. So a lot of people, me including, up until fairly recently, when I've done this type of education on nutrition and looked into a bit more reading, so reading your food and having a look at what calories are in that food, and there's a lot of ways you can substitute one food that you really enjoy for another food that you really enjoy, that may be 3/4 of the calories or half the calories. So that understanding what calories are, there's a lot of people out there that don't know what a calorie is, how that translates to energy, and how many you should have. So how would you start with someone from the get-go? So say if you've got a person who is first time, no understanding of nutrition at all, how would you get someone discussing and understanding what a calorie is?
Me, Alex.
Jump in, mate.
It's difficult. It's challenging. I mean, listen, and if they are listening to this, I do apologise, but I have clients that are very well educated people. Business-wise, they're doing great, and they will say to you things like, "So, what is protein? Is the protein in apples?" Stuff like that. They just don't know. And I think, if you've done your fitness qualifications, that's almost like someone saying, "What's a bicep curl?" It seems like the most obvious thing in the world, but I kind of put myself in their shoes. If I went to, my client's place of work, who was a builder, I would ask to him some of the most strangest, daftest sounding questions in the world, because just like I don't know his industry, he doesn't know mine. So it really, really is, starting at the very, very basics. A lot of my students say to me, my clients struggle to understand this. And you're saying, well, yeah, because you're relaying information that you've just done on your level 3 qualification, but they aren't level 3 personal trainers. You've got to drag it right back to the sort of basic stuff that you would probably see taught in schools, I would suppose. I don't know even if they do, but as basic as it gets. I quite like it's a very famous, obvious one, but the kind of like bank account analogy of calories. Calories in equals money into your bank. It goes up, but if you want to, get your bank account down, you have to spend more than you earn. And those things seem to quite work. But it is hard, and I think one of the major issues with nutrition, sorry for swearing on this, I hope no one minds, but there's just so much shite. So many lies, and I could go and put the TV on now, and I guarantee I can find some sort of nutritional program that's talking absolute baloney.
Yeah.
But if that's on BBC or a documentary on Netflix and you sit and watch it, for the layman that understands nothing about nutrition, why would they not believe that? Why, when we watch Netflix documentaries, we believe what we're being told.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't they believe one on nutrition?
Of course.
So then when we come along and say, oh, no, that's wrong, it's this, that's just like, mind blown, isn't it?
I mean, when we look at it from healthcare, if you get a wrong message the first time, it is so detrimental to the long-term management of your condition, injury, whatever you're talking about. So if you even get you got a lot of bro science, haven't you? If you go in the gym, you've got one person that'll tell another person, then you'll go to the GP will say something else, then you might turn up to a physio, maybe an inexperienced physio, give you an idea, but not really tell you something, then you go to someone else. All of a sudden you've got 5 different messages and you don't have a clue what's going on. It's the exact same with nutrition. And you've got to strip it all back and go back to the basics with nutrition, I think. And it literally is calorie in versus calorie out. If you intake more calories than you burn in a day, you will put weight on. If you eat less, you will lose weight. It is as simple as that. When you get into sports and more of the working with athletes and bodybuilders, then you've got to be a little bit more strict with protein intake, carbohydrate intake. But if you are just looking at weight loss, weight gain, it is as simple as that. Don't let anyone tell you that if you cut carbs, you will lose weight, because all you're doing is a calorie deficit in that day. Any kind of diet, any change, any shake, there's loads of different places that say, like Weight Watchers sort of stuff, where you got, it's just less food, it's just less intake. It works for some people. I'm not going to badmouth places or companies like that, because they have helped some people lose weight, but you've got to understand why you are losing weight. And if that's sustainable for you and you can do it long term, absolutely great. And if it makes you feel okay and you've still got all the right nutrients in your body and you're working hard and able to exercise and get through your day and not fatiguing, that's fine. But if you are using supplements like that, or smaller meals, or Weight Watchers meals, or whatever, and you're not able to sustain that long term, or if you feel as though you have, say, go to the pub and have a pint and a burger and you feel as though that's it, I'm done, that's not a lifestyle, is it?
No. I mean, Alex made a great point earlier, saying that you have to fit a diet around your person, don't you? And if you work with a client that naturally doesn't eat a lot of carbohydrates, then it's a little bit easier to omit the ones that they do eat. So, a keto type diet is successful. But if you have someone that loves carbohydrates and for 30 years they've eaten nothing but carbohydrates, and you say, right, you can't have that anymore, that is never going to work, is it? That is never going to work.
No.
And I guess as well with the keto diet, things like this, and people will try it for the first time and it's going to work. Well, it's because you've taken out a whole food source. You've taken out carbs, which is probably maybe 50% of what you were having before. So again, it just goes down to calories in, calories out. It's simple. And I don't know if you want to progress it forward, and Dom was into talking about food diaries. I think
that was what I was just going to come on to there. So food diaries or applications where you can monitor what food you're intaking, what calories you're intaking. There's loads of different options. We were discussing this just before we started the talk. Alex is a little bit more old school, which I love, going into actual diary and monitoring it that way. I quite like the apps and I use them myself. I use one called LiveSum. I'm not getting paid to promote that, by the way. Just to help understand how many calories I'm intaking and then monitoring the type of exercise I do to make sure I'm not eating more than I'm exerting. But have you got something to discuss on that, Alex?
Just with food diaries, I think that no matter if you're, again, just a regular person trying to lose weight, or even a top level bodybuilder, for example, who would diet into the extreme, just having a knowledge of exactly what's going in your body at all times is what you need to reach your goals, essentially. You need to be able to know exactly what is going into your body within each meal in terms of calorie intake, to understand your overall daily intake, which is then going to either allow you to reach your goals in terms of weight loss or not. In terms of from a bodybuilding perspective, this will get monitored over a period of time. So for me and my clients, I'm very much food diary focused rather than say a MyFitnessPal where it's just calories. So there's two different avenues you can go by, and if it fits your macros approach, which is people follow carbs, proteins, fats throughout the day, or a food diary approach. For me and a lot of my clients, with food diary approach, I think it works better because we can cover micronutrients and macronutrients in one. I think a lot of people who follow the if it fits your macro approach, they'll just hit the macro.
Do you want to just describe what the difference between macros and micros are, just for?
Yeah, well, basically, it's you want to get your sort of your vegetables in as well as your. But it's pretty much as simple as that. Getting your good stuff in, your antioxidants, etc. Eating your greens, eating your fruits, alongside just hitting your carbs, proteins, and fats intake for the day.
I think if you are doing that as well, it's really easy to realise how light on the calories your vegetables, your fruits are.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you are able to eat more in a day and lose weight because you are taking in less calories.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that you can monitor each week. So I'll have a certain amount of carbs, protein and fats per meal, which that'll add up throughout the day for each of my clients. And each week they'll just check in with me and we can adjust those based on if they're losing weight, dropping body fat, or if it's not working and in fact the weight's just stalling, they're just looking the same. So things like that I think are so important just as a coach, and just if you're not a coach, if you're just understanding what's going into your body, it's so important for reaching your goal. I think that's the first thing I would tell anyone who's got a goal of wanting to lose weight, just track what you're eating. You'll be surprised in terms of how much you're actually eating. Definitely, yeah. The little I just only have a cookie here, a cookie there, or if you have that every day, I mean, God, it does add up, and it's over the week. If you have a really high day and then you think, but actually I only had 1,000 calories today, but it's not about just daily intake and your weight's going to come down. It's over the course of a long period of time.
If you look at calorie intake from the sense of what you just said, like a cookie, you think a cookie, it's not going to sustain you, it's not going to fill you up, it's just a treat, it's just a sugar boost, it makes you feel good, releases endorphins. If you looked at it from that sense, if you were to have a bacon sandwich, I guarantee the difference between that cookie and a bacon sandwich, which most people love, obviously not if you're not allowed to eat that kind of thing through dietary requirements, but something that you would still enjoy that would sustain you a lot longer. And then you can have, if it's got less calorie in it, you can have even more of that and sustain you for even longer in the day. But I definitely would advise any trainer, any physio that's got a patient that's struggling with weight, and definitely anyone who's looking at their own weight, to get a food diary, whether it be writing down your food, understanding your calories. If you really want to go in depth, break it into your carbs, your proteins. If you want to go even more in depth with that, look at your minerals and your vitamins. It's the main place to start, because it just helps you to learn and understand. It might be that you do it for a couple of months and then from there you're able to really understand what food you're putting in your body. But if you don't have an understanding, if you're only doing it through just guessing and cutting foods out, then this is number one. This is the first step to really understanding your food.
I think we all, just massively underappreciate how much energy we consume. I think we all kind of think we do more than we do, but I think we probably all eat less than we think we do. It's these licks, bites, taste, snacks, like you've said. It's a biscuit here and there, isn't it? It's your splash of milk. It's, if you've got kids, it's finishing their bit of dinner. It's, your wife saying, shall I give this dog? And you're like, no, don't give it dog. I'll have it. And you almost have like 2 portions of your spag bol, and if you went to a restaurant, you wouldn't have a spag bol and then have an extra spag bol. But, when you're at home, you kind of do. So, what again, come back to what I said earlier, sorry to bang on about it. This is why before I make any kind of serious plans or programs for my client, I just like to get to know them, to kind of preempt these things really.
Yeah.
You know, do they live at home? If they do, that might be a little bit easier to have a kind of clean environment. If they don't, if they've got multiple kids, then that's not as easy. Do they work in an office? Is the office one of those that's always got biscuits and buns and people making cups of tea? Well, it's quite hard, realistically speaking, to be that person that just says in an office full of people, no, I'm not eating that, because they, you know, whether they mean to or not, people kind of like sabotage your diet, don't they? They almost like, for what the better of a word, peer pressure into it. So if people are going to snack and nibble and bite and finish the kids' food, then, you know, for me, we might have to look at other places of drawing it from. Everyone's just different, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, and we're not saying don't have a life by any means.
Absolutely,
you know,
absolutely.
It's what we're talking about is consistent indulging.
Yeah.
Consistently indulging in these types of foods. Whereas, you know, if you have, I'm not saying restrict yourself to one a week or one every other week or anything like that, but if you understand the food you've already intook for that day, and you know that you're going to be exercising, exceeding that calorie exhale, then you know that it's fine. It's absolutely fine. It's not breaking the diet that you've created. And that's where a lot of people go wrong with sustaining these sort of things, is thinking that as soon as they've had some type of food like this, they've already failed. They can't do it, and that's it. They're done.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just wanted to talk a little bit about your own metabolic rate. So apologies for being a little bit science-based with this next little part. Let's see if we can get it up. So this is the scientific management of how we'd look at the equations behind looking at your own metabolic rate. And a lot of apps do this for you already. Alex has got his own way of managing and looking at your own metabolic rate. So there's a few different equations that give you, if you Google any of these top equations here, they'll look at introducing your body weight, your height, your age, your gender, just to give you an idea of how many calories you should eat each day without that introduction of any kind of physical activity. And then you can times it by, multiply it by the amount of activity level that you have, to give you your metabolic rate for generally throughout your life. So if you are a builder, you're quite active through the day, you know, you're talking moderate to very active depending on how hard you work. For your normal metabolic rate before any activity or food, if you're really sedentary. So I would generally put someone in the sedentary spot here if they're any kind of office worker. If you are the type of person that might use the phrase "I'm forever on my feet," which I hear a lot in physio when it comes to exercise, unfortunately that only falls under light activity. If you do actually work outdoors or are lifting, you fall into this area here. If you are a personal trainer and you're throwing things around all day or actually getting active in classes, you fall into these kind of categories in the top. It's really hard to get up here in your daily routine. You know, you're talking really, really laborious tasks. And then we can use body mass goal adjustment just to have an idea of how many calories we can reduce off of what it's given you already, or add on. And then you can use how many calories you burn in, say, an exercise class. A 30-minute exercise class, for instance, might burn 200 calories, depending on its intensity. And then you can add and take that off using your diary. So this is the kind of old school way of doing it. There are a lot of apps that do it now. Like I say, I use the LifeSum app, and there's plenty more that will work this sort of thing out for you. Again, it's just understanding your own body, understanding how you burn energy. There are other things that have an influence on burning energy. So your thyroid levels, whether you have any kind of health conditions can change the amount of energy you burn and how quickly. So you might have to trial this sort of thing, look at the calorie deficit or the calorie gain depending on what your goals are, and then change them going forwards depending on what your outcome is after working on this sort of thing for a few weeks to a month. how would you work out yours, Alex? You mentioned you do something.
Yeah, I do use some of these methods. However, like you were saying, in terms of it's almost a trial and error approach with a lot of my clients. Your typical bodybuilder got on a prep. I work with guys all the way up from masters level right down to sort of your junior level, and obviously their thyroid function, their physical activity level can vary. They might be within a category, but based on their check-ins with me each week, if weight isn't budging to what I think, I'd then have to make adjustments from that. So a lot of the information that I'll take from guys prior to starting, sorry, I've just got a few notes written down there, this sort of covers one of those, it'll be with their sort of daily physical activity. And generally, it'll be what I'll set in terms of calorie intake will be based initially around that, but it's going to massively sway one way or the other depending on how their body's responding to what I'll initially give them. So I found with some of these at times, these measurements, they just don't work with mainly some of the younger guys that I'm working with. So their metabolism levels from one person to the next, it'll differ massively. And I don't think it's kind of a one number fits all approach for me. I think just working with guys, I'll see some guy will drop a considerable amount of weight on, say, a 3,500 calorie diet, on basically their activity levels seem to be the same as another guy who will just drop nothing. So it's, for me, I'm very much, I'll use it as a baseline measure, but then following from that, I'll adjust accordingly based on check-in to check-in.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you can use to have an initial understanding of what it may be, but then you've got to change it to what it actually is.
Yeah. Alex, can I ask a question, please, if that's okay?
Yeah.
What about the kind of clients that you suspect to maybe not reporting fully? Do you like bring them up on that, or do you almost like presume they're not fully reporting, so you kind of make extra adjustments without having to have that conversation?
It's tough. It's very tough. Luckily enough, a lot of I'd say 90% of my clients, I don't have that problem. I won't ever really call them up on it initially. I'll have my suspicions.
Yeah.
But I'll just probe with questions, and rather than saying you're not following the plan, I'll probe with questions, and it'll come out. And even then I won't mention it, and they won't know that I know that they're not following a plan. So I'll be able to know in the future, maybe I might need to make a few more drastic approaches in terms of the diet, which I'm from the info that they've given me. But yeah, luckily enough, I've been quite fortunate with that.
Okay, good.
Can we have a bit of a scenario, Alex?
Pardon?
We have a bit of a scenario. Can I be the patient, the client, sorry, that's kind of hiding from you, maybe the odd cookie? How would you probe that out of someone?
I'll just say so basically I'll go on to talk about this when I talk about what I'll ask my clients. So one of the scores out of 10 I'll give for my clients to answer is their adherence. And if their adherence is 10 for say a 3-week period, and the progress they've made has been virtually minimal, I'll probe with the questions in terms of, your adherence has been 10 every week. Does this mean you've been following everything to the exact gram? For example, like say one meal was that you've been following this perfectly, and then they'll say, oh, well, I might have changed it. I swapped it for this sauce, or I've swapped it for that.
Yeah. As
soon as people are starting swapping up, I'm talking, this is to the bodybuilding.
This is
this isn't just you don't have to be this sort of specific just as a general health client, but for your bodybuilder, I'll probe with those kind of questions, and as soon as they swap sources about, that's when I'll know maybe it's not 100%, or if it's I just had this with with my lad, for example. I had a couple of biscuits with my lad and stuff like that, which I don't mind in maybe an off-season period for a bodybuilder, but on a competition prep, they'll eventually kind of.
You give them a telling off.
No, I'm not that kind of. You know me. No, I'm not that kind of. But it's up to them.
I think you've got to be 100% honest.
They'll do it. Yeah,
you've got to be honest with yourself with this sort of stuff. So when you start in your diary, I've not asked Mick yet if he uses this kind of diary sort of stuff, or kind of just a trusting that you'd eat a little bit more healthy. There's ways to go around it. I mean, advocate for the diary sort of stuff, as is Alex. Obviously, you've got to be honest with yourself, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
How do you see it, Mick?
Yeah, I mean, again, a little bit like Alex, I use a wide range of these things. I mean, the Schofield equation was the one that was taught to me on nutrition, 20 years ago. This was before the internet was only just coming out, let alone smartphones and apps. So everything back then was kind of like very, very paper-based. The Schofield equation was and still is the one used on the official level 3 qualification as well. So ultimately, it's the one I've used the most, so I'm kind of quite familiar with it. In the variations I have it as well, it also takes into consideration for someone's BMR, age and gender and stuff, which I don't think is foolproof, because I don't think you can just say that a man at 18 has got a necessarily superior metabolism to a man at 35, but I think certainly for the general public it's pretty good. But then again, in the modern age, so many people have already got MyFitnessPal or other apps that I just kind of do whatever the client kind of wants to do and I think is kind of natural at that time. But because I work with such a wide range of clients, really, again, how much I need to track differs on each person. If I am working with an athlete, then we have to be a lot more precise. But then again, I think by the definition of being an athlete, they have already kind of committed to the process. If you think about the kind of classic behaviour change model, they are all action. It's the job. I've said already, they don't want to train. They need to train. But then again, for like general population clients, although it might look like they're in the action stage of the model,
we've got a bit of an echo.
Feedback there, haven't we?
Yeah. So stop.
That's sorted. That's sorted. Yeah. So I mean, in terms of like the behaviour change model, although it might look like they're in the action phase, they're actually not. They're still sometimes in pre-contemplation. They might have found a gym and sent up to a personal trainer, but they're really not quite sure yet. So for the athletes, I have to be a lot more stricter. And if they go out on the drink all weekend, I have to say, look, that's happened now. We can't turn back time, but that cannot happen again. That's no good. And that's difficult stuff to say, but they kind of buy into that, really. Whereas though for my very, very general population clients, because of who they are and what they do, I need to be a lot more softer and easier about stuff like that. And as a whole, just concentrate on them being more active. And even if they still go out and get drunk at the weekend, well, I mean, for them, in some cases, having 8 pints of lager is better than having 12 pints, isn't it? And, having half a pizza is better than a full pizza. I think it just depends who they are, doesn't it?
Definitely. I think what you've just said there just leads really nicely onto the next point, which is linear versus non-linear diet. So just as Mick was saying there, if you've got an athlete, you want them to be able to adhere to these strict regulations. Alex, when you've got someone prepping for a competition, you're going to set them calorie goals and exercise goals and targets, and you really do expect them to sustain that throughout that period. If I've got anyone working, I've had I've worked in football, but I wasn't to do with much of the nutrition. So I was at Chef Wednesday in the academy. It was more the sports science guys that worked with the nutrition with them there. But privately, I've worked more with runners, cyclists, golfers, and hockey players. And looking at I'd expect to set them targets and I expect them to follow it. Your daily client, your normal pay person. We've got a bit of an echo there again.
Oh, you're all right.
It stopped. You're going to expect that on 1 or 2 days, you're going to have a higher calorie intake, whether that's going out with your friends. You've still got to enjoy your life. You've just got to know that if you have had that day, you're going to follow this pattern, the non-linear pattern, where you might intake more calories on a Monday. You might have know that you're going to potentially going to have another day later in the week where you're going to have a pizza with your friends or a couple of beers. You're going to have a couple of days or 1 day where you're going to make sure you have less calories, and then you're going to have a normal day where you'll follow your normal routine. That is normal life. So you're going to be able to sustain that for much longer if you're that type of person that is likely to indulge from time to time than someone who's following this linear pattern, which is staying to the exact same calories every day. You guys agree?
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the paradoxes as well with training general population clients is that if they can afford personal training sessions, it probably means they have a decent amount of disposable income. And if they've got disposable income, they are then more likely to eat out at restaurants and have nights out, weekends away, holidays. They're probably more likely to drive to places and things like that. So, and ultimately they've come to you for personal training because by and large they want to lose weight. So, like we've said already, they've got cash on the hip, they've got years invested in this sort of lifestyle. So to think that overnight I'm just going to get them to stop in and calorie count and track every meal just isn't realistic. It's not going to work. So you expect the weekends away, the nights out, but it kind of comes back to that education perspective as well, and not just making them understand nutrition and calories, but how it averages over a course of a week. And if they are going to go out on a Friday night, brilliant, do it. I will never tell you can't go out, unless you're a high-level athlete and stuff. But, Thursday, Friday, you could eat a bit less. Yeah. You can, train a bit more. If you're going out early at Saturday lunchtime, well, get up a bit earlier Saturday morning and go for a run, go for a walk. Just almost like get the calories in the bag, if you know what I mean. Get the energy burnt off in the bag, really.
It's almost like you deserve it. You know you've earned it. It tastes so much better. That beer is so much better.
Yeah, kind of.
Are we being a bit mean at the minute, mentioning like eating out and beers under the current
Possibly,
system?
Yeah.
Probably not the best time, but it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
At some point. Just really quickly.
We're probably all going to super do it. We're all just going to go out and just go.
That's what they
expect.
Aren't we? You look at the guidance from the government, and they expect that your hospitality and leisure is going to just be booming, just because they're going to be wanting to do it. So just a little bit of a guidance to weight loss and weight gain. Just really quickly touch on this before we go into a little bit more of Alex's data collection on bodybuilding. I'm sure it's what we've maybe discussed already. The fat loss. So if you are looking at losing weight, and there's more to it than we recommend you should lose this amount of weight in this amount of time. It's to do with your performance. It's to do with how much muscle you lose. It's to do with the support of your tendons, support of your joints. Arthritis is something that's going to happen to every one of us at a certain age. Anything past the age of 30, you're going to much more likely support those joints, especially if you are looking at weight loss for your general health, your organs, your visceral problems, or your general aches and pains. You're going to be much better off sticking to these guidelines and not overly losing too quick. When you lose too fast, you lose too much muscle, you lose too much power, you lose too much support, and then that can cause just as many problems sometimes as losing weight too quickly. So try not to overdo this sort of thing too quickly. Any thoughts on this table here, gents?
Again, I think it's as a general structure, it's good. Definitely, yeah, definitely. But again, I think it almost depends on your goals. I'm just coming from a bodybuilding perspective again. If you need to make, get into a certain level of condition within a certain period of time, this recommendation might not be exact in terms of the sense that we might need to lose at a much greater rate.
Yeah,
than say you're
I think that's for the general public as opposed to.
Yeah, I think these are general guidance.
Yeah, environment.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, they seem pretty healthy.
Yeah, so if you've got a bodybuilder who's generally got a lot more muscle to support this weight loss, they're going to be a lot safer doing it than your general 50-year-old man or woman who's going to the personal trainer or the gym for the first time, seeking out that help and just wanting that big wow factor from the friends. Look at you've lost loads of weight. Well, that's great. One thing is it isn't sustainable, just like we talked about with the nutrition. And two, it's not the healthiest way of doing it if you don't have the muscle to sustain the weight that you're losing. Yeah,
exactly. It's all perspective in terms of what goal you've got. Bodybuilding is not the healthiest sort of goal. You can't maintain the level of condition you get into. But yeah, I'd say if you're going to go about weight loss, the best way to do it would be typically around those kind of scores.
Yeah. What do you think, Mick?
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, I think those are the ones that you would kind of expect. I think it's kind of common knowledge, isn't it? The bigger you are, the quicker you lose weight. But again, I think that can perhaps kind of unfortunately trick some clients into thinking that they are going to achieve their overall goal a lot quicker because they lose
a lot
a stone in 2 or 3 weeks, and they think, all right, brilliant, in 2 months I'll be like 9 stone sorted. It's obviously not that easy, but again, going back to what I said at the start of the discussion, really, anything that promotes commitment and adherence in the first few weeks, I'm all over that. So, I think for my overweight and obese clients, I would be looking at something similar to that. I think we do often see more, certainly in my opinion, but likewise, if the weight loss is very, very drastic, that just proves to me how different the lifestyle is now to what it was a few weeks ago. And I think the bigger the difference between was and now, the greater the increase of them crashing, burning, quitting, whatever you want to call it, in a few weeks' time. So, yeah.
I think when you've got that kind of obese client or patient, say if I've got someone with knee pain, we say like, look, you need to lose weight, you need to get on it. They find themselves a trainer, whether by ourselves or another establishment, and they start with this weight loss. One thing they've started with is they're burning a hell of a lot more calories than they have initially.
Yeah.
They don't understand their own metabolic rate and how much calories they need to intake to do this sort of stuff safely. And then they will eat healthier and not have as many snacks.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it will drop off you.
Yeah.
But, and it is good for that visual feedback of yourself. You might get people saying that you look like you've lost weight. That's great. You're looking better. You're looking fitter. You feel better. All really good things for the longevity of your training and nutrition, and it's going to keep you, pumped and feeling like you want to continue this on. But there's safe barriers, and you've just got to make sure you're not overdoing it.
Yeah. And again, an understanding the person that you're working with. I mean, going back to that, like the sheet I deal with the Schofield equation on, and how very few people get to 1.8, even athletes, because a lot of pro athletes, they might train 2 or 3 times a day, but in between training, they do next to nothing. I mean, some very top level athletes, they're almost told that they can't go shopping, play golf, play with the kids, etc., just to conserve energy. Well, if we have got a general population client and they're now doing 2 sessions a day and they're on a massive calorie deficit, yes, you know, weight's going to fly off, but these people can't go home and go to sleep in between training sessions. They've got to go back to work, and they've got to drive, and they've got to have to look after the kids. And that's not a nice thing to do, that when you're tired and hungry and dehydrated. And, you know, if then that causes problems at work, or that causes problems at home, that then becomes in a few weeks another reason for them not to continue training and eating right. So,
you're not going to feel the same person. You're going to feel lethargic if you do everything at once. It's got to be done within the right confines. And this is the sort of help and what we're doing today to try and give trainers and general population alike the right ideas about doing that. So this next one is similar, but for muscle gain. For a novice, you're looking that you may be able to increase your muscle gain. A lot of people don't understand it's actually much harder to put weight on than it is to lose weight. Makes a lot of people angry when you say that, but I'm sure you guys will understand the same. Because to put the right type of weight increase on, you're trying to build muscle tone, you're trying to increase muscle bulk, which obviously is more dense, heavier than the fat. So you're having to train to do that, and you're burning calories, so you've got to eat more. And then you train harder because you've got that energy, and you've got to eat even more. So I really do have a lot of respect for Alex and the type of guys that he trains, for being able to stick with these programs to get to the stage that they get to. It's really impressive. Which obviously, I'm guessing, Alex, is it outside the confines as it would be in the weight loss, or is this something that you'd look at?
No, I think this is very much. This is much more you can relate it to bodybuilding. I think it takes a long time, but again, it's such the individual who you're working with, their genetic makeup again will determine how much muscle they can gain within a set period of time. The minute I'm working with a lad called Josh Keane, he probably won't remind me saying it, but he's got the potential to be a professional bodybuilder just through his genetic makeup. He's got that. I think if you probably did one of the genetic tests, he would have, they call it the myostatin gene, which essentially allows you to put a lot more muscle mass on than the average person. So I think as well, genetics will play a huge part, but as a general guide, this is I would agree with it. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Alex, do you want to move on to the bodybuilding data collection and tracking, or have you covered that in what we've discussed already?
We've covered a bit of it. It's just a lot of the stuff I'm talking about. Yeah, it's very sort of bodybuilding specific. So if you're not really into that, maybe it's not your thing. I apologise in advance if I sort of mentioned some terms that people aren't sort of used to hearing, but I know Dom will just pick me up on it and I'll explain those. So yeah, just data collection for monitoring for bodybuilding. This is kind of the initial assessment I'll do with any athlete wanting to get on stage. So for me, sort of the first bit of data collection that I'll get, well, I call it data collection, it's sort of a broad term, but it's just basically establishing their goals. Following from that, for me, it's just the things that you can monitor. So sort of body weight, condition, that'll be able to monitor that also through pictures, videos that I'll get from my athlete. It's also understanding their current lifestyle. So we've touched on this before. So understanding how active they are, which can essentially then make an initial assessment on how much food they'll need to start off a bodybuilding prep. And then also from this going forward, monitoring, the things I like to monitor as a coach are sleep, motivation, fatigue, appetite, and strength. And each individual, each one of those will sort of allow me to make decisions going forward based on prep. I'll just give a quick example. So, for example, if we're dieting and their appetite is really low, For me, that's telling me just through experience they're probably not burning body fat. So for me, one of the first things that I like to get all my athletes is their appetite booming. When I know their appetite is booming, I know that it's not really a metabolism thing. I think just because you're hungry doesn't mean essentially your metabolism's firing. But for me, I think that's a nice little check-in point to know that they're going to be losing body fat. The body's telling them something. It's not getting as many calories as it needs to sort of maintain its current state. So they're going to be losing body fat. So yeah, that's just a quick example and stuff like that. The data collection I like to get at the start, and also the monitoring that's going to allow me to take the athlete through the preparation phase and basically determine the decisions that I'm going to make. So yeah, that's just that bit that I've just briefly covered, but yeah. So I don't know if that's the same with you and your client. I guess it's going to be different for a physio client to sort of your general population client as to what info you'll need that's going to determine the steps you're going to make.
There's still facets in there that you can carry over to different sports, though.
Yeah.
You get other sports where building muscle can be difficult. So yeah, it's the way you train which shows where that muscle is actually going to be composed and synthesized. So it's still really important for people to be able to build muscle. One of the interesting sports that I've grown up with, which is golf, it's gone from kind of old blokes hitting it 200 yards to now quite physical athletes following Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy and Jason Day, guys that are really quite athletic, fast guys that are still going to need those components. Yeah, you're going to train them slightly differently. So you're going to use a bit more strength and conditioning, fast, explosive movements, but they still need that initial muscle to be able to support those movements, don't they? So I think it does carry over. What about yourself? Maybe you come across many athletes where you're kind of looking at those factors. I know sleep's massive, isn't it, when it comes to being able to produce?
Yeah, I mean that's the classic pyramid, isn't it? It's training, it's food, nutrition, and then rest, recovery, whatever you want to call it, which sleeps in, and just making sure all those three boxes are ticked. That's kind of something that an analogy I like to use with my athletes. A lot of them is just have a daily checklist, and at the end of each night, literally tick it off. And if there's one facet that you can't tick off, okay, that's happened. But just make sure why that is, because I think bodybuilding's a little bit different in terms of like most sports, in that bodybuilder, not all sports. I mean, you could argue that things like boxing is very similar, but certainly for the sports that I work in, I've done a lot of work in it. You're not just having the long prep for one day on stage. A lot of my rugby players and footballers and whatnot, they're having to prepare for performances sometimes twice a week. And ultimately with a sports person, it's all about performance. I'm not trying to make my rugby player the strongest person in the gym. I'm trying to make them the best rugby player that they can be in. And in some cases, the best sort of training is next to no training. If you play rugby on a Sunday, but you then got a game on the following Friday, well, by the time you've recovered from being smashed from pillar to post for 80 minutes, you then got to play again. So any training sessions that they do within that week, that short week, would be recovery sessions at best, accessory sessions at best, which are perfect for that athlete. But from almost like a muscle building perspective, that's not going to build muscle. If then you happen to play Friday and then the following Sunday, you've then got a 9-day turnaround. So actually you've got scope then for 2 or 3 training sessions. And that's why ultimately
the development of kind of athletes in their off season.
Yeah,
totally different. The way you train them, the way that your nutrition changes within that time to develop you as an athlete going forward. It is almost like you are preparing for a bout, like you are when I've worked with the footballers, when I've worked with the runners, it's building up to something. But when you are in season, you've got competition after competition, like Mick says, it's just about getting the best out of your rest, recovery, repeat.
Yeah.
You mentioned nutrition strategies, Alex. What strategies do you use to help people stay on track with the hardcore nutrition?
Well, we've kind of touched on one before in terms of
Burger and chips.
Yeah, just food choices. So we ideally want to go for foods that are going to minimise inflammation. They digest well with the person, but also they're going to enjoy to a certain extent having them. So they're going to still have.
On there, Alex, you mentioned about reducing inflammation through nutrition. So I think that's really important.
Yeah. So I don't want to. It's almost like timing of meals for me personally. So I find a lot of guys, they can be, this is a specific example, intolerant to things like whey protein. So if they have whey protein pre-workout, it's still on the stomach. They can't digest it well. So we don't want a lot of kind of inflammation, or they can't digest the food prior to a session. Whereas, say, if they're getting hungry in the evening, maybe these food sources where they do take longer to digest, they fill them up, they cause a bit of inflammation, I guess, in a way. It's good to kind of maybe choose those meals away from the training window, or if they don't like the sensation of it at all, not include them at all. If they like to feel light on the stomach at all times. But that's just a little bit about why I think food choices are important, and in terms of minimising inflammation, especially prior to training. Also, along with the nutritional strategies, there's plenty of ways going about setting up a bodybuilder's diet. Some of the typical ways, if there's many prep coaches watching now or bodybuilding athletes, I sort of use either one or two styles with my guys. So they'll either have a training day and rest day diet program, which basically means they'll typically have a little bit more food on a training day. Generally have more carbs on a training day because they're going to need that fuel source. And on a rest day, we'll reduce their carbohydrate intake, increase the fat, obviously keep the protein high at basal level at all times. But yeah, they'll generally use a different fuel source on a rest day as a training day, and that can be manipulated as they go on through the prep. The other nutritional strategy that I use with some guys is carb cycling. So I don't know if any of you have come across this before. You must have done, regarding athletes making weight, or even you can carb cycle for performance sports, carb them up throughout the week, leading into a game. So it's similar to that from a bodybuilding perspective. So if they're training a heavy, so typically leg day is very tough for any bodybuilder. So I generally like to utilize high carb days on those days. And then, for example, like I've said, rest days, low carbs. And then if they're training a body part, such as they might have an arm day, it'll be a medium carb day, I like to call them. So I'll have 3 set sort of protocols for each of those days. So 3 different diets throughout the week that they'll hit each day dependent on, and then again you can adjust those going forward with the weeks through how they're checking in, obviously monitoring the condition and the different things I talked about previously as to when we might make it's always reductions in food to drop even more body fat when needed. So yeah,
I think they both still carry over onto the general public as well.
I think
one thing that I see, I'm sure Mick's seen it hundreds of times, is someone coming for their first personal training session and not having eaten for 12 hours. Just because they think I'm going to start this change, this journey, and I'm not going to input anything. I don't want to eat anything fatty. I don't want to eat any calories and then train, and then what's the point? So you need to make sure that you are getting the right amount of calories, and that's when your macros come into understanding that you do need carbohydrates, you do need your bread, potatoes, pasta, rice to be able to function in our sessions, and that accounts for physio as well. If you're coming for a proper rehabilitation session and you haven't had the right nutrition input, you're going to have a worse output. You're not going to recover the same as you would if you don't have the right amount of protein you're not going to build and synthesize the right tissue, the right tendon, the right muscle to then support your injury and get better. Whether it's just, normal low back pain from having an injury, lifting something at work, or whether you're a top level athlete and you've pulled your quad and you need to get back as soon as you can, it really does matter.
Yeah, I think, it's a talked about topic a lot in kind of the bodybuilding prep world or prep coaching world, and guys are kind of starving athletes to get them in shape. Whereas sort of a lot of my strategies, they'll start, the food is going to be really high at the start of each prep, so we can just gradually pull from there. But yeah, you hear about these bodybuilding diets when it's literally like you say, fish and a rice cake, or just veg and chicken salad all day, every day. Yes, that may work, but the output you're going to get from your training is going to be pretty rubbish, which is then in turn going to get a pretty rubbish physique. So it's making sure you're at the same time. Yeah,
I've taught countless students who were prepping for a physique bodybuilding thing, who are at a course all weekend and they're not training, so they just go mega low calorie, but they're just like falling asleep in class. You know what I mean, they're just on nothing. Or some are, they're probably going a little bit too low, but
yeah, I think there's a time and a place for that. I mean, right at the end of a prep, it's really uncomfortable to be at those low body fat percentages. I mean, you're gonna if you don't feel horrendous, really, as bad as it sounds, at the end of a prep, you're probably not in the best shape you could be on stage. However, that feeling should only last for a week, 2 weeks max. But I think there's become a common trend now where if people are starting their preps on such low amounts of food, which is meant to be the typical bodybuilding diet, they've got nowhere to go. So where do you pull? So if you're a bloke and you're starting your diet on 2,500 calories, which sounds a lot, but as a bodybuilder, it's quite low. You've got nowhere to go. You're going to finish your prep on about 1,000, 1,200 calories, which it's just going to make you look rubbish, and it's not good. You've got to think from a performance point of view as well. You need to be able to fuel your sessions.
Build muscle,
and losing body fat, which is when the skill comes in as a coach, and it's very much taking into account the different things that I use to monitor, condition being a main thing as to what decisions I'll make going forward. It's tough. It's a fine act. It's tough. It is, especially when there's no, to go on previous about the numbers. I mean, as a bodybuilder, you can't really put the calculation in on a computer and that's the outcome. Oh, give him that diet. It's tough. It's hard to work out. But I think I'm still young. I'm 24, but I think as the more I'm prepping guys, the easier it'll get. I guess. So it's very interesting. That's what kind of draws me to it. It's definitely not one diet fits all, or this is the bodybuilding diet. It's like, no, you can do a lot within that.
Every client is a case study one, aren't they? Everyone, they've all got a unique combination of things that we have to work out. That's the job, innit?
Yeah, exactly.
And one last thing you wanted to touch on, Alex, which was training. I know it's not as much as the nutrition side of thing, but how would you discuss training as a competitive bodybuilder from your view as a trainer and as an athlete yourself?
Yeah, again, there's a lot of talk about training, specifically in bodybuilding at the minute. A lot of different coaches with very, very strong opinions on this is the way to train. There's plenty of ways you can go about it. I'm just going, my experience, I quite like the push-pull leg style variation. And what I mean by that is you'll train multiple body parts in one session. So your push session is going to be a chest and shoulder focus session, chest, shoulder and tricep focus session. Your pull session is going to be a back and bicep session. And your leg day is just going to be a quadriceps hamstring session. So that's generally the split I like to go off, and it'll typically be maybe a push, pull, rest, legs, rest, repeat from there. So it's typically the way I like to work it from just with the leg day just being so neurally taxing. I like to put the rest in pre and post those sessions, which is kind of a split that a lot of people follow at the minute within bodybuilding. But I think one of the biggest things when I'm programming these sessions is to sort of establish my clients. They call it the MRV, so maximum recoverable volume. You've probably heard of that before. Like a lot of Mike Israel, I don't know if you know a bit of his work. He talks about that, but I find it very hard to kind of judge, which again is when your monitoring comes into play, your fatigue, motivation, things like that. One volume for one guy to work at might be different for another guy, especially when you're not one-to-one in them every session. If they're an online client, some guys are going to train harder than others. Some guys are going to be able to take it a set to true failure, muscular failure. Some guys will go 1 or 2 reps short. So you've kind of got to be very... it takes weeks to kind of understand where your client's at, what they can tolerate and what they can't. So some guys might be able to tolerate 30 sets a week, even on back, just because of their training intensity. Some guys might even be tolerate 12 to 14 because that's how much they can tolerate. That's how much they can progress their load.
That's where it becomes really important in working with guys like ourselves to make sure that we are actually getting that right information and not just reading this is what I should do from an online platform, as in just reading it off the internet. It's just
some clients break all the rules. When I'm teaching courses and we're talking about training volume and what you should expect in a session, the day before I might have trained a client that like Alex said did 30 sets in an hour, and it was nothing to them. They're just machines. They're just animals, aren't they? They really are. And they want to train that hard as well. It's not just that they can. Anything remotely over 2 minutes of rest is just horrendous for them. They're just like, nah, just let me get back on and train. And you just got to let them at you sometimes.
I find quite a lot of respect again, Alex, for you for what you do and trying to keep it diverse and interesting with doing. You say your push-pull leg kind of rotation and trying to make sure that they're getting different kind of exercises in there and not just being quite... I think myself and Mick might train people slightly differently. We've got loads of different equipment we can use, sledges, battle ropes, kettlebells, dumbbells, where I think it's a little bit more strict, isn't it, the way that you work with your clients. So I think it's quite interesting how do you keep it interesting, I suppose, for your clients working in that kind of environment.
I think it's almost sometimes the difference between prepping a bodybuilder athlete in comparison to a lot of your general PT clients is that with your bodybuilding client, your exercise selection has not got to be what they want to do. It's what's best for their physique. Right, So, and typically that's going to be what they don't want to do because they've neglected it. So if you've got a client we're looking at body parts, so they've got a bad back. I say they've got a bad back. They haven't got a bad back. The back's all right, but in terms of from a judging perspective, that's what they're lacking on their physique. So in terms of our exercise selection, we've got to choose movements which are going to improve the part of their back that needs developing, which if it's all of it, we're going to have to get a lot of rows in and a lot of pull downs, pulling from the floor as well. And just our exercise selection has also got to suit our athletes' mechanics as well. So typically I see some guys, they might, looking at the quads, with a squatting variation, that may activate a lot of glutes rather than the quad. If it's a quad focused session, a squat might not be sort of the best exercise for them. So we want to look at maybe even a leg press and things like that. That's really going to isolate the quad. So it is, from that side of things, you've got to be very on point with your exercise selection with your clients, not just doing what they want to do, which I've got a lot of clients where I know what exercise they like to do, so we're going to do them. And we're going to do different variations of them because the point is that they're being active and they come back. But with if you're going to take it to the competitive side of things, like you're working with an elite athletes, it's not what they want to do, it's what is best for their physique.
Yeah, I think when we're working with clients, I think Mick's pretty similar to me probably, where we're looking more at what are their goals when it's coming to an athlete and what functional movement or position can we get them in to make them as proficient in that particular position or doing that particular task, rather than isolating a particular muscle and thinking that needs to grow. It's not about the growth of the muscle, it's how it performs and how explosive it is. So there's loads of different ways to skin a cat. So
absolutely.
It is. Would you agree with that, Mick?
Yeah, fully. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, general population clients that want muscularity, you know, whether to me, whether a squat is glute focused or quad focused doesn't, unless it's an injury perspective, it doesn't really make that much difference to me. It's legs. And then from my athlete perspective, it's all about working the body as a whole anyway. So, I mean, I think that's the big difference with bodybuilding, isn't it? You're not just training, you're crafting and building every individual muscle, aren't you, as best you can, where I just don't have those clients. You know, my facility doesn't suit it anyway. I don't attract them. So, no, we train differently. But.
Yeah, awesome. Anything else to add, guys?
No?
No, not particularly. No.
So we've discussed today, we've gone through motivations, how you can develop better relationships when working with a trainer, S&C coach, or from a physio point of view as well. If we don't get that triggered relationship with the clients, your motivation will go. Being around people if you can, or getting them involved with what we do is going to be helpful. Enjoying your time at the gym, have a laugh and a joke. We do enjoy that time. Understanding your food, so what's in your food, calories, the breakdown of protein, carbs, and then going into the micros, the vitamins and minerals at that point. Looking at, see if you can have an understanding of what is your daily metabolic rate, and when you are inputting into your diary or your apps or whatever you're thinking of using for the first time with yourself or your clients, are you does it make sense, and are you getting the right outcomes? Are you hitting your targets and your goals? If not, then change it regardless. Linear versus non-linear diets. If you are really strict as an athlete, stick to your targets, stick to your training. Don't let up. If you are the general public and are happy to go out and have a night out, we do advise that. Just make sure that you are adjusting your training and your nutrition to that. Make sure you're staying within the right guidance of weight loss and weight gain. A little bit different if you're an athlete, staying within those guidelines. And then a little bit on bodybuilding, nutrition, and training as a bodybuilder there a little bit from the end from Alex. So I just want to thank everyone you both for joining us. I am on social media as DCM Health and Fitness. Mick is Mick Blythe Performance.
That's right, yeah.
And Alex, is it just Alex Woods?
Alex James Woods.
James Woods, yeah, if you want to follow any of us. We'll look forward to doing something similar in the future, might even make it interactive. If you do have any questions for us, post below and we're happy to answer them. If you have any questions or any topics that you'd like us to cover, please let us know, and we'd be happy to move forward and do something like this in the future.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
Gents.
Yeah.
Cheers, fellas.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Speak soon.
Care, bye-bye. Bye.
See you soon. Bye.
The